Dr. Rory here of Help Your ADHD Child and the ADHD Gifted Center. Today I want to address a really important and serious topic that was called to my attention today and has me incredibly fired up, frustrated, and beyond words. So much so that I've had to stop recording this video at least 6 times because I'm so frustrated that I lose my words, I lose my thought, I lose my composure. And I want to make sure that, well, it's okay you see that emotion and that frustration, that it stays relevant and on point. So here's the deal. I was just on Facebook, and a friend of mine called attention to an article printed in the Daily Mail. And the headline of the article is, ADHD doesn't exist. Neurologist says ADHD masks less serious problems, which I think he meant, or they meant to say more serious problems, because there are other things going on. I don't know why we'd say it masks less serious problems, but that's besides the point. And then see, that's where the sarcasm comes in, is that's how frustrated I am. The bottom line is, to say ADHD doesn't exist is a lot like saying there's no homeless problem in America. There's no drug problem at my kid's school. We don't have a healthcare crisis here in the United States. You know, the equivalent of saying, no, there's no hunger in Africa. Everybody has food. It's it's 2014. Who could be starving today? That's the equivalent, if you will, of saying ADHD doesn't exist. It does exist. It's been around for over 100 years. It presents millions of people with countless challenges, struggles, and frustrations. And when you say ADHD doesn't exist, you're basically pulling out the rug from underneath a bunch of people who are looking for help and trying to understand why they're struggling. You're kicking them in the gut, you're leaving them winded, and you're saying, now what? It's ridiculous, it's absurd, and I don't think whoever wrote this article or this even doctor out of Chicago really gave it much thought other than, hey, I've got a book coming out and I need to stir up some attention, so let's go ahead and make a ridiculous claim that's totally baseless so that we can rally up the troops, which the wrong people, because now all this guy has done is stirred up the conspiracy theorists and everybody who has a controversy in their mind about how the pharmaceutical companies created ADHD in a back room with a bunch of doctors so that they could sell more medications and drug children. What else? So we could say, oh, your parents are bad parents, you're not disciplining your child, so you have ADHD as an excuse. Or it's another one of my favorites, oh, it's just an excuse for the schools to control more children. These are all baseless claims. Is there some truth to what this author is saying, this doctor? Yes. ADHD, to me anyway, I've said it before, ADHD is not a disease, it's not a deficit, it's not a disorder, it's not an illness. I hate that. Because the bottom line is, the challenges that people with ADHD face are not unique to somebody with ADHD. People with ADHD are not the only ones in the world struggling with time management issues, with organization, with planning, with working memory issues. They're not the only ones in the world who are a little bit more hyperactive, inattentive, or maybe impulsive. There are lots of people out there who have those characteristics and traits. As a matter of fact, ADHD, like this doctor says, it's a duh, really, like you needed to say that in print. This doctor says ADHD is nothing more than a group of symptoms. You're right, because that's what a diagnosis is. A diagnosis is a group of symptoms. A diagnosis is a short form way of listing all of those characteristics without having to list them all out. And that's a problem. This author is also claiming that ADHD is being diagnosed at absurd rates and amounts to what is really going on in the world. And I would agree with that, but it's too late. This guy has already lost my respect. He has already lost any credibility and stance with me whatsoever because of this baseless claim to get attention. The reality of the situation is most people in this world do not have a clue about what ADHD is really like. Most people think, including doctors like our friend here who says ADHD doesn't exist, think that hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention are the challenges for ADHD. They're not. They're not even exclusive to ADHD. As a matter of fact, if you go to your doctor and tell them, I or your child, my son or daughter has or struggles with, I think my child has ADHD because hyperactivity, impulsivity, and attention, that's like going to the doctor and saying, I have a fever. We know something is wrong. Our job as professionals is to figure out what. And the sad part is ADHD has become a catch-all diagnosis. It's become a catch-all diagnosis because of media attention, because, yes, influence from the pharmaceutical companies to make that diagnosis something we can treat with medications that do help no matter what people say. Is it the only way to help? No, of course not. I don't want to get off topic here with medications because that's another issue for another day. But the bottom line is most people don't understand ADHD. They don't know what it is. They don't know what the real challenges are. And I'm addressing this because you don't need to hear from people. You need to know that you can dismiss people who make these baseless claims. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the conspiracy theorists hung their hat on the fact that the quote-unquote grandfather or founding father of ADHD over in Germany on his deathbed said ADHD is a fictitious disease. It's not what he said. What he said, when translated properly from German to English, is that ADHD has the likelihood to be misdiagnosed because of all the other conditions and stressors and factors in our lives that can make it look like ADHD. But that's not sexy. That doesn't sell magazine copies. That doesn't sell books like what this author wants when you claim ADHD doesn't exist. Did you think for 1 second the amount of damage you were doing when you say ADHD doesn't exist? Did you think about the people it would affect and the people it would hurt? Or did you and your publisher just think, oh, we're going to sell some books here now? That's the problem with the world, folks. Most people don't think. Most people make a statement, make a claim, they get it out there, they want attention, and they look at people and say, oh, you must have ADHD. Really? No wonder why we live in a world where people don't pay attention or are easily distracted. There's a bunch of nonsense out there. ADHD is a very, very real condition. It exists. Is it what a lot of people being diagnosed with it really have? There's no way to know, because there is no test for ADHD. No matter what anyone tells you, there is no blood test for ADHD. The brain scan technology just isn't there. Sorry, you know who you are. It's just not there. But kudos to you for pushing it forward. The paper and pencil tests don't do it. The only way you can accurately diagnose ADHD is through a clinical interview and in-depth family history. And even then, it's a best guess. So what you're saying is that when you have ADHD, you have a list of challenges. And that is the only place that I agree with this doctor out of Chicago, is that in a lot of cases, when someone has ADHD, there are underlying issues that are not being addressed. So no, we don't want to just throw medication at the diagnosis, at the problem, and think it's going to go away. That's not how it works. We have serious problems in this world, in this country, and at home in healthcare. And if you want to support your child, you need to understand that having this diagnosis, it is not a life sentence. Your child is not broken. He or she does not need to be fixed. They are not doomed for the rest of their life to struggle unless that's how you paint them and let them think they have to see themselves. A person with ADHD can be just as successful as the next person. The real issue here, folks, is to pay attention to who you are learning from, who you are getting your advice from. Do they know what they're talking about? Do they have a hidden agenda? Like this doctor out of Chicago who all of a sudden has an article in the paper because he wants to sell a book coming out. Now listen, I'm just as guilty. I'm an author. I'm a behavior therapist. I have an office. I do like to help people. But my overall mission is not to sell more books. It's to help more people. A book is a vehicle to do it. So I offer that book to people when I think it's right. But the bottom line is ADHD is out there. It's very real. Is it being misdiagnosed? Absolutely it's being misdiagnosed. All the time, left and right. Why? Because it's a best guess diagnosis. And not to mention, there are so many other factors: diet, exercise, sleep, poor chemical balances in your body unrelated to ADHD, the toxins and chemicals and preservatives and GMOs that we're putting in our body. We're overloading our system. We are at toxic loads that the body does not know how to handle. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Be careful who you listen to and where you get your advice. That's it for me today. I will look forward to speaking with you